I don't tell this story for fame or to convince you of anything. I tell it because it happened, and because something inside me says you deserve to know before 2026 comes. My name is Ethan Miller. For most of my life, I believed only in what I could measure: aircraft, coordinates, signals, data. Faith was for people who needed comfort. I needed proof, until proof found me. It began with a light in the sky. NASA called it a comet. C-2019 Y4 Atlas. They said it was breaking apart, but I watched it slow down, change course, pause, as if it were looking back. At first, I thought it was stress or grief or maybe the desert playing tricks on me. I'd lost my wife the year before. Sleep and prayer had both left me. All I had left was silence, and that silence began to whisper. It started small, radio static that pulsed like a heartbeat. 3 short tones, 1 long. I thought it was nothing. But when you stare into the dark long enough, the dark starts to stare back. I've kept these tapes for years. Most people wouldn't believe them. But belief doesn't change truth. And the truth is, the 3I Atlas wasn't a comet. It was a vessel, a messenger. What it told me about God, about creation, and about what's coming in 2026 changed everything I thought I knew about life and death. You don't have to believe me. Just listen, because soon you'll see the same sky I did, and you'll understand why I can't stay silent anymore. I live miles away from the nearest town in the Arizona desert. Out here, silence is both a blessing and a curse. After my wife Laura passed away, the stars became my only company. They never judged me, they just listened. At night, the sky opens wider than anywhere else on Earth. You can almost hear it breathing. Some people look at the desert and see emptiness. I see a cathedral without walls, a place where God and loneliness meet. I wasn't always a man of solitude. I once worked for the Air Force, calibrating navigation systems. I believed in science, in precision, in things you could measure. Faith was Laura's thing, not mine. But after the accident, when I buried her beneath that red hill by our ranch, all the numbers in the world couldn't explain why love ends so suddenly. I stopped praying. I stopped believing. The sky turned silent. In March of 2020, NASA announced something unusual, an object named C-2019 Y4 Atlas. They called it a comet, but the report said its trajectory was strange, slower, controlled, like something watching. I remember staring at the news photo, a pale green glow crossing the black. It wasn't the object that caught me. It was the feeling. For the first time in years, I felt seen, like something was looking back. That night I brought out my old telescope. The air was sharp and dry. Coyotes cried somewhere beyond the ridge. When I focused the lens, I saw a moving light unlike any comet I'd ever tracked. It pulsed in rhythm. 3 flashes, pause, 2 flashes, then 1. Over and over. I thought maybe it was a reflection, a trick of the optics. But when I checked the frequency, the pattern repeated perfectly every 5 minutes. I started writing down the intervals, thinking maybe my mind was desperate for meaning. But deep down, something in my chest whispered, "It's talking." And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. The following nights, the object grew brighter. I logged its position at 10:12 p.m. every night. Each time, the light shifted a few degrees, not like a comet drifting, but like a ship adjusting course. One evening, while pouring coffee, the radio on my counter crackled to life. Static at first. Then a faint tone, steady, repeating, almost musical. I checked the frequency, 144 megahertz, a band no one uses out here. The sound wasn't random. It pulsed in the same pattern as the flashes I'd seen through the telescope. 3, 2, 1, pause. Again. My hands trembled as I recorded it. Whatever was out there was now reaching in. Days turned to weeks. I stopped watching the news, stopped answering calls. All I cared about was the sky, The world talked about viruses and politics. I watched light move like it had purpose. Neighbors began asking if I was all right. I'd nod, smile, tell them I was tracking data. But at night, I felt the distance between me and everyone else widen, like a thread being pulled tighter each day. Sometimes, when I stared too long, I heard Laura's voice in my mind. "You always look for God in equations, Ethan. Maybe he's trying to meet you somewhere else." I dismissed it, yet the words stayed. By late April, NASA reported that Atlas had begun to fragment. "Breaking apart," they said. But through my scope, I saw no debris, only a single intact light, changing color from green to silver. I recorded every second. The pattern shifted that night. 3 flashes, then 4. My breath caught when I realized the spacing between them matched the Morse code for the letter E. E, the first letter of my name. I told myself it was coincidence, but the more I stared, the harder it became to believe that. It was as if the universe had suddenly learned to whisper. That evening, clouds rolled over the horizon, thunder without rain. I sat on the porch, radio beside me, coffee untouched. The static changed pitch, low, then high, like a question being asked. I spoke aloud, half in jest. "If you can hear me, what are you?" The desert gave no answer, but the radio stopped, completely silent, and in that silence I felt watched, not with fear, but recognition. For days I couldn't shake that feeling. I checked the recordings again and again, each time finding patterns within patterns. The object wasn't behaving like debris, it was waiting. One night I stepped outside without my telescope, just my eyes and the dark. The light was there, steady, pulsing softly like the beat of a distant heart. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" A breeze swept through the desert. The sand moved in waves, glowing faintly under the starlight. For the briefest moment, I thought I heard a voice carried by the wind. "Watch. Listen. Remember." I don't know why those words stuck with me. Maybe grief makes us imagine things, or maybe faith begins when logic runs out. Either way, from that night on, I knew something was about to happen. Looking back now, I realize that was the first message. Not the flashes, not the radio, but that quiet stirring inside. The one that said, "You're not alone, Ethan. The sky is about to answer." The days grew longer, hotter. The air smelled of dust and iron. Every evening I'd sit on the porch with my notebook waiting for the desert to speak again. Nothing did. The radio remained silent, like the world had exhaled and forgotten to breathe. I told myself to let it go, to stop chasing ghosts across the sky. But faith, once sparked, doesn't vanish. It lingers like smoke. Each night I'd scan the horizon, praying for one more flicker of light. May came with monsoon winds, the kind that shake window frames and rattle memories loose. I found myself talking to Laura again, her photo on the kitchen counter, asking if she'd seen that same light from heaven. I hadn't stepped inside a church since her funeral, but sometimes I whispered prayers under my breath, broken ones. "If you're out there," I said, "send me something real." I didn't expect an answer, but the sky was listening. One night, as I tuned the radio, a tone emerged, faint, rhythmic, almost gentle. The pattern was new, not 3-2-1 anymore. It repeated in pairs like a pulse echoing through space. I ran the recording through software I'd used years ago in the Air Force. The signal wasn't random, it carried modulation, hidden data within the hum. I decoded what I could, but only 3 letters appeared. S-O-N. Sun! I laughed nervously. Maybe interference, maybe coincidence. Still, my chest tightened. In Scripture, the word carried weight. More than a message, it was identity. I shut the laptop and went outside. The moon hung low and red that night, painting the sand in rust and gold. Coyotes howled in the distance. I stared up at that unmoving light and whispered, "If this is real, I'm listening." Silence. Then, a single flash, bright enough to bleach the desert white. My body trembled. My ears rang. When my vision cleared, the sky was empty again, but the word kept echoing in my mind. Sun. Sleep wouldn't come. I spent the night scribbling thoughts, frequencies, patterns, verses I remembered from Laura's Bible. The heavens declare the glory of God. I didn't know if I was decoding data or divine poetry. At dawn, my neighbor, Carl, stopped by. He's one of those ranchers who believes nothing he can't brand or ride. He laughed when I mentioned the signal. "You're chasing aliens now, Ethan?" I just smiled. Maybe Faith wears a different suit. Carl drove off, shaking his head, and I went back inside. The radio still hummed faintly like it was breathing. I adjusted the antenna. The pitch shifted upward, soft, melodic, like a voice learning to speak. Then I heard it, 3 syllables stretched through static. Son? My blood ran cold. The rational part of me screamed interference. The other part, the part Laura once called my soul, whispered, listen. For hours, I replayed the recording. Each time the words grew clearer, like the machine was tuning itself to my heart instead of my hands. I realized it wasn't just transmitting, it was responding. That night, a storm rolled in from the west. Lightning lit the mountains like flashbulbs. I stood outside, rain soaking through my shirt, eyes fixed on the sky. Between thunderclaps, I swore I saw movement behind the clouds. A second light appeared, smaller, trailing the first. For a moment they danced together, merging and separating, like something alive. Then both vanished behind a wall of rain. I felt a strange peace, not fear. Inside, I played the radio again. Static filled the room, then a sudden pop like a circuit completing. The signal returned, louder this time. The pattern changed again, forming a slow, steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. I placed my hand over my chest, syncing my pulse to the sound. The longer I listened, the more I felt it aligning, not outside me, but within. It was as if something was rewriting the silence between beats. Around midnight, I wrote a single sentence in my notebook. The sky is teaching me how to listen. Those words felt foreign and familiar at once. I didn't know if it was revelation or delusion. Either way, it felt holy. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. My power had flickered during the storm, but the equipment was untouched. The signal was gone again, replaced by that quiet hum that now felt almost alive. I poured coffee and stepped outside. The desert was steaming from the night's rain. The air smelled like renewal. For a second I thought I saw footprints near the edge of my property, small circular impressions glowing faintly. I blinked, and they were gone. Maybe just reflections on wet sand, but my instincts, the ones trained in the military, told me otherwise. Something had been here, and it wasn't human. That night I prayed again, not for proof this time, but for clarity. If this is you, Lord, don't let me lose my mind before I understand. The wind rose softly, carrying the scent of rain and iron. The stars shimmered brighter. When I turned off the radio, the silence that followed felt sacred. It wasn't empty anymore. It was pregnant, waiting. I realized the quiet had become its own kind of message. Sometimes God speaks best through stillness. I didn't know it then, but those quiet nights were preparation. The sky was rehearsing me for what was coming. The night when the light would finally descend and everything I believed about heaven would change forever. June arrived like a fever. The desert shimmered under the heat, and yet every night the same cool light appeared in the sky. Constant, deliberate. NASA's updates became confusing, then silent. The object wasn't behaving like a comet anymore. I tuned into an online astronomy forum. Amateurs everywhere noticed the same thing. Atlas has slowed, but space doesn't slow down. Motion doesn't pause, unless something or someone is controlling it. The coordinates I tracked showed deviation by several degrees, each night shifting southwest. toward Earth's orbital plane. The data shouldn't exist, but my instruments didn't lie. It was changing course. When I realized that, I sat there frozen. The idea of control, of intelligence, made the silence heavier. I felt both small and chosen, like a child standing before a door he's not sure he's ready to open. That week, I barely slept. The light patterns grew irregular, almost playful. Sometimes I'd see it fade completely, only to reappear closer, brighter, pulsing faster, like it wanted me to notice the difference. I called a friend from my Air Force days, Tom Richter, who now worked at a telescope array in New Mexico. I sent him my data. He called back, whispering, "Ethan, you didn't get this from me, but we've seen it too." He told me the official channels were labeling it instrument error, but privately his team called it the turn. According to his readings, Atlas had begun a controlled deceleration, something no natural body could do. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "Whatever it is, it's not ours." The line went dead a second later. I tried calling back. Nothing. My signal was jammed for nearly an hour. That night I felt an unease I hadn't known since the war. The desert air seemed thicker. My radio, my watch, even the porch light flickered in perfect rhythm. 3 short blinks, 1 long. The pattern returned to the sky. 3-1. Pause. Repeated. I realized it wasn't Morse, it was binary. 1s and 0s forming a code. I spent hours decoding the first sequence. It translated to one word, wait. It became my obsession. Every time I tried to ignore it, something pulled me back. Once I caught myself whispering, "I'm here," to an empty room. I wasn't sure if I was answering the stars or my own loneliness. Days bled together. I ate little, slept less. Even my dreams were filled with light, the same soft pulse moving closer. Sometimes I woke to find the radio turned on by itself, whispering static that felt aware. Carl stopped visiting. He told others in town I'd gone desert crazy. Maybe he was right. But insanity doesn't leave burn marks in the sand. And that's what I found one morning. A circle, scorched perfectly black, 50 feet wide. I touched the soil. It was warm, hours after dawn. The air smelled faintly metallic, like ozone after lightning. But there'd been no storm. The circle pulsed faintly, heat radiating upward in invisible waves. That night, I checked the object again. It was gone. No visible trace. I stared into the dark sky, confused, and then my telescope caught movement, something massive, faintly blue, just behind the stars. I adjusted focus, heart hammering. The outline resembled a vast structure, symmetrical and gliding, not debris. The comet wasn't fragmenting. It was unfolding, revealing a shape too precise for nature. I saved the footage, but when I reviewed it later, the files were corrupted. Static hissed over every frame. Still, one image remained, faint lines forming a triangle of light. My chest tightened. A vessel, not a rock. The next night, Tom called again. His voice shook. "Ethan, listen to me. They're telling us to shut down all public data feeds. Something's coming, and it's using the Atlas trajectory as cover." Then static. At that moment, I realized the world wasn't being told the truth. NASA had gone silent, but the sky was screaming in binary. Every flash, every pulse spelled urgency, not threat, but warning. I looked up and whispered, "If you're real, what do you want from us?" The light didn't respond. Instead, the wind stopped, the desert went still, and in that absolute silence, I felt something vast listening. Over the next week, reports appeared briefly online, fishermen seeing lights over the Pacific, pilots describing orbital mirages. Each post vanished within hours. It was like someone was erasing evidence in real time. By mid-July, the light hovered motionless for 3 nights. Then, on the 4th, it moved, suddenly, decisively, away from the sun and toward Earth. I recorded the coordinates. It was coming here. For the first time since Laura's death, I fell to my knees and prayed, not out of fear, but surrender. Whatever was behind that light, I knew I was meant to witness it. The desert wasn't empty anymore. That evening, the sky glowed green, then silver, then pure white. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in seconds. The ground vibrated under my feet. My equipment shut down all at once. Every light dead. I stood alone in the darkness, staring at the sky's reflection in my truck's window. For a heartbeat, I saw two suns. One ours, one approaching. That's when I knew the comet hadn't changed direction. It had chosen one. It happened on a Thursday. The desert was unusually still, like the world had paused mid-breath. I was outside checking the telescope when the wind died, and the animals fell silent. Not a cricket, not a coyote, only waiting. A soft hum drifted across the sky, lower than thunder, higher than machinery. My porch light flickered once, then went out. Every circuit in the house surrendered at the same instant, as if power itself had knelt. I grabbed my flashlight, but the beam was weak. The air felt charged, hair rising on my arms. Then I saw it, northwest horizon, a pearl of white swelling until it painted the desert silver. It didn't fall. It arrived, moving without sound, cutting through the clouds like light through water. My breath caught. I remembered Laura whispering, "God will send a sign when you least expect it." The object stopped above the mesa, half a mile out. No flames, no smoke, just brilliance, suspended in air. I dropped to one knee, not from fear but awe. Every instinct said, "You're not supposed to see this." Through the glow, I glimpsed motion, panels folding, shapes aligning. It wasn't round. It was geometric, alive, its surface rippling like liquid metal. And then came the vibration, deep enough to rattle bone. I felt it more than heard it. A pulse synced to my heartbeat. The sand around me shimmered, lifting in thin sheets. I tried to move, but my body disobeyed. My flashlight slipped from my hand and floated upward. The beam turned skyward, drawn into the light. A column descended, narrow and translucent, spiraling with dust and static. I stepped closer, one foot sinking into sand that glowed faintly beneath me. Inside the column, shapes shifted, human-like but radiant, silhouettes within sunlight. One stepped forward, its edges bending the air. When it looked at me, the desert disappeared. There was only white. My knees gave out. Warmth spread through me, neither fire nor electricity, something gentler. A voice filled my head, clear but wordless, translating emotion into thought. "Do not fear. You were called." "I don't understand," I whispered, but sound didn't leave my mouth. The being answered without moving lips. Understanding follows faith. Its tone was calm, like remembering instead of speaking. The light shifted, forming symbols that spun around us. I recognized none, yet felt their meaning. Maps, frequencies, prayers. One symbol pulsed brighter. Instinctively I reached out. When my fingers brushed it, visions flooded in, galaxies birthing stars, oceans forming, faces of beings across worlds raising hands toward the same unseen creator. I cried, overwhelmed by beauty I couldn't contain. I don't know how long I was inside that brilliance. Time folded. My memories played backward, childhood church pews, Laura's laughter, my doubt. Each moment stitched together by one thread, light. Then came the silence within the light, the eye of something infinite. From it, a single phrase emerged, carried on thought. "Ask the question you came for." I knew instantly what it meant. My throat tightened. I managed, "Does God exist?" The being didn't answer immediately. Instead, the world around me dissolved into color, then sound, the hum of creation itself. I saw matter born from vibration, planets singing, life rising like chords in a song. In the center of that harmony, a presence, warm, immense, personal, watching with love older than time. The voice returned. "He is not a concept. He is the breath that moves all worlds, even ours. The being's chest glowed brighter, as though echoing a heartbeat that wasn't its own. I wept, not from fear, but recognition. The light dimmed until I could see its face, kind, ageless, eyes carrying both sorrow and joy. Why me, I thought. The answer came, because you still ask. Thunder rolled overhead, though the sky was clear. The ship began to ascend, slow and deliberate. The column widened, wrapping me in brilliance. Remember, the voice said, what you witnessed was invitation. When the light receded, I was lying flat on the desert floor. The hum faded. Stars reappeared, cold and distant, as if nothing had happened, but the sand beneath me was warm, glowing faintly blue. My watch was frozen at 2:26 a.m. The batteries in my gear were drained, yet my body buzzed with energy. A mark shone faintly on my wrist, a perfect circle no bigger than a coin. I staggered to my truck, half blind from tears. The engine started on the first try, though the battery had been near dead. As I drove home, I kept glancing at the sky, afraid and grateful at once. Back on the porch, I sat until dawn. The circle on my wrist pulsed softly, in rhythm with my heartbeat. I whispered the only prayer I remembered. Thank you for showing me that I wasn't forgotten. As the sun rose, I noticed new footprints leading away from the porch. 3 sets, faint, vanishing into the sand. And on the horizon, where the light had descended, a single word burned into the earth. Wait. The next morning, I returned to the mesa. The ground where the light had touched was glass, sand fused into a smooth black mirror. My reflection stared back, pale and small, framed by infinity. Nothing burned, yet the air still shimmered as though holding its breath. I ran my hand over the surface. It was warm, vibrating faintly, like something beneath it was still alive. I thought about calling Tom, but instinct told me not to. What could I say? Hey, the comet landed in my backyard, and now the ground hums with God's heartbeat. Some truths you have to keep between yourself and the sky. A breeze passed, carrying the faintest scent of rain and metal. My wrist tingled where the mark shone. When I looked down, it pulsed once, 3 short, 1 long, the same pattern as before. I raised my eyes and whispered, "If you're there, I'm listening." The air thickened. Light gathered above the glass like fog catching fire. It shaped itself into a column, and from it, the figure emerged again. Brighter than morning, softer than flame. The being hovered inches above the ground, body shifting like sunlight through water. Its outline was humanoid but fluid, shimmering with internal radiance. I felt the same calm fear you feel in a cathedral, the awareness of something holy and real. My voice cracked, "What are you?" The answer came inside my head, not my ears. A messenger, not of power but remembrance. It stepped closer. The ground rippled beneath us as if gravity had become gentle. My heartbeat slowed. Why me, I thought. The reply, because faith begins where knowledge ends. The being lifted a hand. Within it, light condensed, forming images. Stars collapsing, seeds blooming, faces from different worlds, all turning toward the same source. Everything returns to light, it said. Its voice was both many and one, like a choir speaking through a single breath. I asked, "Is that light God?" The figure tilted its head. "He is not light as you see it, but the will that allows light to be." The air trembled. For a moment I felt Laura beside me, her laughter, her warmth. Tears filled my eyes. The being's light pulsed brighter. "Love is proof of his presence," it said. "Even death cannot silence that frequency." I knelt, whispering, "I lost her." The being responded, "You never lost anything eternal. She walks with the source. You feel her because love cannot die. It only changes address." I wept openly, not caring who might see. The being's radiance softened, almost comforting, like sunlight through stained glass. "Your pain was not punishment," it continued. "It was preparation." "Preparation for what?" I asked. The air around us shifted colors from gold to deep blue. The being replied, "For understanding what comes next. For the message I must deliver before the return." "Return?" My voice trembled. The light flickered. "The vessel you call Three-Eye Atlas was never a comet. It is a herald. Its core sleeps, waiting for the appointed alignment." I swallowed hard. Alignment of what? The being paused, as if choosing words carefully. "Heaven and earth," it said, "spirit and matter, a convergence written before your kind learned to speak his name." The sky darkened though the sun still shone. Wind spiraled around us. The being extended a hand toward the horizon. "In 2026, the mothership awakens, not to conquer, but to call." "To call who?" I asked. The answer came heavy with sorrow. "Those who remember, those whose hearts still carry the light. The call will sound through faith, not fear." I felt chills run down my spine. Why tell me? The being's light dimmed slightly. "Because truth must have witnesses. The world will call it science, but you will know it as promise." "What happens if we don't listen?" I whispered. The figure looked upward, its gaze piercing clouds. "Then darkness will learn to speak louder than light. But even then, he will not abandon creation." Lightning flickered in the distance, though the air was dry. The being turned to me again. "The time is short, Ethan. Do not seek proof. Seek readiness." I nodded, unable to speak. It lifted its hand once more, and a small sphere of light floated toward me, resting just above my palm. It vibrated gently, humming in the same rhythm as my heart. "This will guide you when the sky opens again." I looked down at it, mesmerized. When I raised my eyes, the being was fading, dissolving into soft radiance. "Remember," it said one last time, "the light returns where it is welcomed." Then it was gone. Only the hum remained, echoing through the mesa like an invisible song. I stood there long after the glow vanished, holding that sphere, until it sank into my skin and disappeared. When I finally walked back home, the desert looked the same, but I wasn't. Every grain of sand, every gust of wind whispered the same silent promise: he is coming again, and this time the world will remember. That night I couldn't sleep. The desert was quiet again, but not empty. Every shadow felt alive, humming with the same rhythm that now pulsed beneath my skin. I sat on the porch, Bible in one hand, recorder in the other. I played the last transmission from the radio. The signal was faint but steady. 3 tones, pause, then 1. "Wait." I whispered to the wind. "You told me to wait. I'm still here. What now?" The sky was clear, moonless. Stars stretched endlessly, cold and brilliant. For the first time, I wasn't looking for the light. I was waiting for the silence, the kind that comes before something divine speaks. Hours passed. Then, just as I was drifting toward sleep, the air changed. Static filled the radio, then a soft voice, familiar and foreign at once. "Ethan." I froze. "I hear you," I whispered. "Are you still here?" "Always." The word echoed through my thoughts. My heart raced. I looked toward the mesa, half expecting another flash. Instead, the stars above me shifted, ever so slightly, as if making room for something unseen. The voice continued, "You have one question left to ask." I hesitated. My throat felt dry. "I already asked," I said. "You showed me creation, you told me of light, but I still don't understand." The air thickened, warm and electric. Then came the same glow as before, gentle, steady, surrounding me like dawn before sunrise. The being materialized near the porch, calm, radiant, patient. Its presence didn't startle me this time. It felt like greeting an old friend. "I asked before," I said softly, "but I need to hear it again. Does God exist?" The light trembled, as though inhaling. "He does," the being said, "but not as your words define him. He is not distant. He is within every atom that moves, every breath you take. The universe is his canvas, and love is the brush." I felt tears forming. Then why suffering? Why pain? Why silence? The being looked toward the desert, because love allows choice, and choice creates shadow. Even darkness proves light is real. Its words sank deep, steady, and heavy. You search for evidence, but he is the evidence. Without him, there would be no question to ask, no soul to seek. I gripped the Bible tighter, breath shaking. The being lifted its hand, and images appeared in light, the cross, galaxies spinning, a mother holding her child, soldiers praying before battle. He is in all these. He suffers with you. I whispered, then he hasn't forgotten us? The being turned its gaze back to me. He never forgets. It is mankind that forgets him, building towers of noise where silence should live. The glow brightened, casting long shadows across the sand. You asked if he exists. The better question, Ethan, is, do you still believe he does? My heart stung. I wanted to answer, but couldn't. The figure reached out, touching my forehead lightly. Heat radiated through my body, and with it came images of my wife, laughing, smiling, alive. She walks in his garden, the voice said. Your love reached her. My knees hit the floor. I wept openly, not from grief but from recognition. The God I had doubted was never gone. He had been waiting in the silence, whispering through light and loss alike. I managed to speak. Why me? I'm no prophet. I've done nothing worth seeing this. The being answered, because you never stopped asking. Doubt is not absence of faith. It is the seed that makes it grow. The porch creaked under invisible weight. The light grew so bright I had to shield my eyes. Then came the sound, a low harmonic tone that vibrated through the air and into my chest. In 2026, the sky will open again, it said. You must tell them. The mothership will return, carrying witnesses from many worlds. They come not to rule, but to remind. To remind us of what? I asked, trembling. That he is the same in all hearts, in all galaxies. That the one who spoke light into being has never stopped speaking. The tone deepened. The being's edges blurred, as if light and body were merging. Some will deny, some will fear, but faith will recognize faith. The Spirit of God is not bound to one world. I wanted to ask more, but the air shifted again, heavy, dense. The being's light folded inward, shrinking to a single point above my mark. When they come, remember this feeling. Love, not fear. The point of light entered my wrist, merging with the mark. The warmth spread up my arm, through my chest, and into my breath. I felt lighter, cleansed, whole. You asked if he exists, the voice whispered. Now you know. The light faded, leaving only starlight. I sat in silence for a long time, hand over my heart, pulse steady. For the first time since Laura's death, I believed completely, without condition. When I finally looked up, the stars above me seemed closer, almost alive. And in the faint wind that swept through the desert, I heard his name carried softly across eternity. I am. After that night, nothing looked the same. The colors of dawn seemed brighter, the silence fuller. Even the wind carried meaning. I could feel it, like the world itself had started breathing in sync with me. I stopped using the telescope. I didn't need lenses anymore. Every night I'd sit outside, eyes open to the sky, and somehow I understood its language, the rhythm between stars, the pauses between light. One evening, as twilight bled into darkness, I felt that warmth again, the hum beneath my ribs. The air rippled, and the being of light returned, less radiant now, almost gentle. You're ready, it said. The horizon bent slightly, like reality adjusting. A thin beam extended from its chest, touching my forehead. I didn't resist. In an instant, the desert vanished, replaced by a vast ocean of stars. I floated without weight, surrounded by living light. It wasn't space as science describes. It was more like spirit woven into geometry. Every spark carried a tone, every color a thought. It was creation singing. The being's voice echoed from everywhere. In the beginning, there was the Word, the frequency of His breath. Light is not just seen, it is spoken. I felt those words vibrating inside my bones. Below me I saw galaxies unfolding like petals, each spiraling toward an unseen center. The closer I looked, the more it resembled something familiar, a heartbeat pulsing with divine rhythm. He spoke, and matter learned obedience, the being said. Every atom remembers the command to love. I watched light weave into form, mountains, oceans, faces, each one a reflection of the same voice. Then I saw Earth, tiny, blue, shimmering with layers of color, but not just physical light. Around it glowed fields of gold, violet, white, energies moving like tides of prayer and song. These are your souls, the being said, each one a spark of the first flame. Every act of kindness brightens the whole, every cruelty dims it. I realized creation wasn't a single event, it was ongoing. The vision shifted. I saw ancient civilizations looking up at the same sky, prophets, shepherds, kings, all hearing whispers of the same truth, that God's hand shapes both galaxies and hearts. Why show me this? I asked. The being replied, because you still see separation. But there is none. Spirit and matter, science and faith, heaven and earth, they are different names for the same intention. Light expanded again. I saw what looked like a vast network, threads of energy connecting stars. Each node pulsed as if alive. This is the body of creation, it said. Christ is not confined to one world. Its words cut through me. I remembered sermons I'd ignored, prayers I'd mumbled. But here, in this endless expanse, those teachings weren't abstract. They were visible, tangible, vibrating truth. We study the frequency of faith, it continued. Your world once sang in harmony, but fear detuned the song. Yet there are those, like you, who still remember the melody. What happens if the song fades completely? I asked. The being's light dimmed, then creation sleeps. But he never lets darkness have the final verse. The compassion in its voice broke me. Then the vision changed again. I saw a massive form approaching Earth, silver, crystalline, surrounded by blue fire. Three-eye Atlas, I whispered. The being nodded. It carries the echo of the first word. It comes not to harm, but to awaken, it said. In 2026, its heart will open, releasing the same frequency that once birthed your world. Those who listen will remember who they are. I asked, and those who don't? The being looked away, sorrow crossing its features. They will see only a comet and miss the calling, yet mercy waits even for disbelief. Light swirled around us, forming shapes of wings and fire. Every civilization is given its reminder, it said. Yours is next. Prepare not your weapons, but your hearts. My chest burned with awe and fear. How can we prepare? The being replied. By loving as if time were running out, because it is. The stars pulsed once, twice in silent agreement. The vision slowed. The ocean of stars folded inward, collapsing into a single beam that reconnected with my mark. You are the bridge, it whispered. Tell them faith is not foolish, it's alignment. The light around me faded until I was back in the desert, knees pressed to the sand. The wind had returned, soft and cool. The being hovered above me one last time. Creation continues through you. Then it was gone. I looked up, expecting the sky to seem distant again, but it didn't. For the first time, I saw God everywhere, in the stars, in the dust, even in the silence between my heartbeats. That night I didn't record data or take notes. I just sat there whispering, "Thank you." Above me, one star blinked twice, then once, the same rhythm as before. Maybe coincidence, maybe confirmation. I didn't need proof anymore. I woke up face down in the sand. My mouth tasted like dust and iron. The sky above me was pale orange, the kind of light that blurs night into day. For a moment I didn't know where or who I was. The desert was silent, but not empty. I could still feel the hum beneath the surface, like the ground itself remembered what had happened. My wrist ached where the mark glowed faintly through the dust. When I stood, my legs trembled. Every direction looked the same, endless dunes and red stone. My truck was nowhere in sight. Panic rose for a moment, but then a calm thought surfaced. Follow the light. I turned east, toward the sun. Each step felt guided, as if unseen hands steadied me. By the time I reached the road, the mark on my wrist had faded to a soft warmth. I found my truck parked neatly by the fence. The engine started without hesitation, though the battery should have been drained. My watch blinked 4:44 a.m., a time that felt deliberate. I took a deep breath, whispering, "Okay, I'm listening." Driving home, the desert shimmered with morning light. Every cactus, every shadow seemed alive, whispering through color and silence. I felt peace, but also purpose, like I'd been given a mission I couldn't yet name. When I reached the ranch, everything was untouched, the coffee still half full, the Bible open on the porch. Only one thing had changed. A thin layer of white dust covered the table. It wasn't sand. It glowed faintly. I collected some into a jar. Under sunlight, it pulsed softly, like breathing. I sent a sample to Tom with no note, just coordinates, and the words, "Do you see it too?" I never heard back. For days I moved like a man half dreaming. My appetite vanished, replaced by a strange clarity. Food tasted different, simpler. Music felt deeper. Even silence had texture. Sometimes I'd catch reflections in glass that weren't mine, a shimmer passing behind me, or eyes that seemed too bright to be human. I wasn't afraid. It felt like being watched by something protective. The mark on my wrist flared whenever I prayed, not painfully, but as a pulse of warmth echoing my heartbeat. I began to realize it wasn't a scar, it was a covenant, a reminder of the question I'd dared to ask. Neighbors noticed the change. "You look lighter," Carl said once, awkwardly handing me mail. I smiled. Maybe I finally believe what I used to doubt. He nodded, not understanding, but respectful enough not to ask more. At night, I'd sit on the porch and speak aloud, not to the stars, but through them. "If you're still there," I'd whisper, "thank you for trusting me." Sometimes a faint tone answered from the radio inside. I started journaling again, filling pages with memories of light and words the being had spoken. Some lines didn't feel like mine. I'd wake in the morning to find new sentences written in the margins. Faith is alignment. That phrase appeared more than once, always in the same handwriting, not mine. I began to think the message wasn't finished. Maybe it was still being written through me. Weeks passed, then months. The object known as 3I Atlas vanished from NASA's radar, officially disintegrated. But some nights I still saw a faint silver glow moving far slower than any comet should. On one of those nights, the air outside thickened again. I heard a low hum, different this time, deeper, heavier. It didn't scare me. I stepped out barefoot, following it to the edge of the field. The wind stopped. The hum grew until it matched my pulse. And then I saw it, engraved faintly into the soil where I'd once seen the word, "Wait." Now another word glowed beneath the dirt, "Prepare." I dropped to my knees, hands shaking. "For what?" I whispered. The wind answered, carrying dust that formed shapes in the air, circles within circles, like ripples in time. I remembered what the being had said, "The mothership will awaken." The phrase echoed louder now, as if the desert itself repeated it. "Awaken, awaken." My heart pounded with both wonder and dread. Over the next few days, strange things happened. Electronics flickered, birds migrated early, even the cattle refused to move near the mesa. It was as if nature sensed a countdown invisible to man. I tried reaching Tom again, no response. His phone disconnected, his email vanished. It felt like someone, or something, was erasing the trail, maybe to protect him, maybe to protect me. I began preparing without knowing how, stocking water, journaling every signal, praying longer. Faith felt heavier now, not just hope, but responsibility, the kind that changes how you see everything. Sometimes at night, when the world was perfectly still, I'd hear a faint melody in the wind, notes so soft they felt like memory. I knew that song. It was the hum of creation, returning for another verse. I didn't tell anyone, not Carl, not the town preacher. How could I? The next part wasn't meant to be believed. It was meant to be witnessed, and I knew deep down the witness was already chosen. Autumn came early that year. The desert wind turned cold and sharp, carrying a strange hum I couldn't trace. The stars seemed brighter, closer. Some nights the horizon itself shimmered like glass under pressure. News stations spoke of magnetic anomalies, satellites flickering, animals migrating in circles. Scientists blamed solar storms, but I knew the rhythm. It was the same pulse that once filled my radio. 3 short, 1 long. I drove into town for supplies. The air felt heavy, radios cutting out mid-song. Carl met me at the gas station. "Power's been flickering again," he said. I just nodded. I didn't have the heart to tell him why. Back home, I replayed old recordings of the Atlas signal. Hidden beneath the noise, new data had appeared, tones layered like harmonics. When graphed, they formed shapes eerily similar to the mark on my wrist. At night, the mark glowed faintly, sinking to the frequency. I felt it more than saw it, a heartbeat in my bones. Each pulse whispered a word only the soul could hear. Soon. Then came the dreams. Vivid, electric, too real to dismiss. I was standing beneath a sky split by light, people falling to their knees as something immense eclipsed the sun. Yet I wasn't afraid. It felt like homecoming. When I woke, the sound lingered, a distant choir woven into the wind. The same melody I'd heard after the encounter. I recorded it, but the playback produced nothing but static, as if the sound lived only between worlds. Online, fragments of truth began leaking. Amateur astronomers claimed to spot a returning fragment of 3I Atlas. Some swore it was moving against orbital mechanics. Hours later, those posts vanished. Tom never answered, but one night I received a single encrypted email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "He is coming." The body contained only coordinates, my mesa, and the date, July 9th, 2026. I printed it and burned the file. The ash drifted upward instead of falling. For the first time, I wasn't sure if I was being warned or invited. Either way, the countdown had begun. Over the following weeks, technology around me faltered. My phone battery drained within minutes. Clocks ran slower near the porch. But the Bible beside my bed remained untouched. Pages always turned to John 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The verse echoed louder each day. Even my radio began whispering it back, voice fragmented but unmistakable. People in nearby towns reported strange skies, spiral clouds glowing green, power surges followed by calm. I watched footage before it was pulled offline. Every phenomenon followed the same pattern of pulses. One night I caught my reflection in the window, eyes faintly illuminated, pupils rimmed with silver. I blinked hard. It didn't fade. The mark on my wrist flared again, brighter than before, leaving a soft burn. I knew then the change wasn't external. The light wasn't returning to Earth. It was awakening inside us first. The being had said, "Faith is alignment." Maybe this was what alignment felt like, resonance with the divine. By December, sky watchers worldwide noticed a new object trailing behind the moon's orbit. NASA dismissed it as debris, but its orbit matched 3I Atlas's original path perfectly. My pulse raced, reading that report. That night, clouds rolled over the desert. Lightning flickered without thunder, silent and white. I stepped outside barefoot, every hair on my body rising. The air smelled like rain and static memories. Above the mesa, a faint spiral appeared, light within cloud, rotating slowly. It was beautiful, deliberate, intelligent. I whispered, "I see you." A single beam shot downward, illuminating the cross on my fence post. The beam vanished. The air trembled once more, leaving a whisper in its wake. Prepare the hearts, not the weapons. I dropped to my knees, weeping. That sentence wasn't for me. It was for all of us. In the following days, small miracles began to spread. Farmers reporting crops growing overnight. Lost children found miles from home unharmed. Sick animals standing again. Each event followed the same timing. 3:33 a.m. I started writing everything down, mailing copies to churches, journalists, anyone willing to read. Most ignored me, some mocked me. A few wrote back quietly, "We've seen it too." The hum beneath the desert grew louder, like a great machine stirring beneath the sand. Birds stopped nesting near the mesa. At night, faint blue veins of light traced along the ground, pulsing toward the horizon. When I prayed, the words came faster, clearer, as if I wasn't the one speaking. "Thy kingdom come," I whispered, and the wind answered in rhythm. For the first time, faith didn't require effort. It required surrender. One evening, I found another word burned into the soil near the old circle. It read simply, "Remember." I fell to my knees, hand pressed over the mark. The hum faded, replaced by silence, thick as a heartbeat. And in that silence, I understood. The echoes weren't warnings. They were rehearsals. The world was tuning itself for a song older than time, waiting for the chorus to begin. And that chorus would start in 2026. It's been 6 years since the night the light descended. Sometimes I wonder why I was chosen. Other times, I think maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just quiet enough to listen when everyone else stopped listening. I live alone still, though the ranch doesn't feel empty anymore. The air hums faintly every dusk, the same pitch I once heard through the radio. It's not noise, it's memory, the earth remembering heaven's voice. I started recording this testimony last month. Old camera, dusty mic, same wooden porch where it all began. I speak not for proof but for preparation. Someone needs to hear before the sky opens again. I've told this story 100 times to no one, rehearsing the words that won't sound insane. I met something, I say, someone, a messenger. Every time I reach the part about God, my throat tightens. Because the truth isn't just that He exists, it's that He never left. The universe isn't expanding away from Him, it's expanding within Him. Every star, every breath, part of His heartbeat still echoing creation. People ask, if there's a God, why silence? I used to ask that too. Now I know. Silence isn't absence, it's invitation. God waits for the questions that can only be asked in stillness. Last week I drove back to the mesa. The glass field was still there, smooth as the day it formed, except now faint lines glowed beneath the surface, circles interlocking, forming what looked like wings. The hum grew louder when I stepped closer. My wrist flared, matching its rhythm. Then I heard it. His voice again, calm and infinite. "Ethan, the time approaches. Speak the message." I fell to my knees. I don't know what else to say. The light responded, softer now. "Tell them I am near, not to punish, but to fulfill. Tell them faith was the test and love was the key." The wind rose, swirling around me. The horizon shimmered like heat over metal. Then came the words, "I'll never forget." In 2026, the mothership returns, not as vessel, but as veil lifted. I asked what that meant, but the voice faded into song, low, harmonic, like 1,000 prayers overlapping. The ground trembled, then stilled. When I opened my eyes, the lines in the glass were glowing brighter. Back home, I wrote everything down by hand. No recordings, no files, ink and paper only. Technology won't survive what's coming. Truth must outlive electricity. I mailed copies of my journals to churches, observatories, even NASA's address in Houston. I don't expect replies. Truth rarely travels fast. It waits for those with ears tuned to light. The mark on my wrist has changed. It's no longer a circle, but a small cross made of light beneath the skin. Sometimes, when I pray, it vibrates softly, like an amen whispered back from heaven. At night, the sky looks restless, stars shifting ever so slightly eastward. Maybe imagination, maybe alignment. The same alignment he spoke of, heaven and earth preparing to meet again. I've had more dreams lately. Laura stands at the edge of the mesa, smiling, hand outstretched. Behind her, the horizon glows silver. I wake with tears, heart full of peace, not longing. Some mornings, radio static still hums faintly. Hidden in the noise is the same phrase in countless languages. Prepare the hearts, not the weapons. It's the same message I heard years ago, now global. Governments call it interference. I call it prophecy. Faith isn't blind, it's bandwidth. The stronger your belief, the clearer the signal. The light is tuning us, one soul at a time. Yesterday I saw something at dawn. 3 lights moving in formation, silent, deliberate, leaving no trail. They paused above the mesa, then vanished like mist. The air tasted like electricity and peace. I don't know what form the return will take. Maybe light, maybe sound, maybe a collective awakening, not a ship at all. The being said, mothership, but maybe that was just language fit for my understanding. Still, 2026 draws closer, and every sign matches what was promised. Shifting poles, luminous clouds, hearts awakening. It's not the end. It's the unveiling, the same word he used, revelation. I keep my Bible near. John 1:5 is underlined twice. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. It never will. That's the message. That's the answer to every fear. If you're hearing this someday, don't chase the light in fear. Welcome it. The one behind it isn't coming to judge, but to remind. The Creator of stars still knows your name. Tonight, I'll sleep on the porch one last time. The desert hum feels stronger, the same tone as before each encounter. My wrist glows faintly. I'm not afraid. I think I finally understand what faith means. When the sky opens again and the light returns, remember this. It's not arrival, it's remembrance. The heavens are not coming for destruction. They're coming for reunion. And maybe they're already here.